Sometimes the first sign that your marriage is over is a process server. Welcome to the Consultation. My name is Josh Floyd, and
my name is Christina Jimenez.
We are both board-certified family law attorneys here at Jimenez Floyd Family Law Firm. And today we're going to talk about when you get caught off guard by a divorce.
Yep. That sucks.
Yeah, it's not fun, particularly during the season. Oh my God.
Right. But unfortunately, it does happen a lot, right? And I don't know that people are oftentimes blindsided. I think that they kind of know, like, okay, we've been having problems and things haven't been great for a while. But then whenever you actually get hit with the paperwork is when things get a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I feel like they know, like, they're on the rocks. They just don't know that they went over the cliff.
Right. And we have had it happen where people have been like, I have no idea. I had no idea that this was going to happen. Completely blindsided by the entire thing. And I will tell you, from a mental health, situation, that's always the absolute worst. And so today that's what we're going to talk about. Is just what happens, what to look for, how to protect yourself, all the good things.
And just know this not that uncommon.
Yeah.
That the other person doesn't know it's coming.
Yeah.
So
why do people file for divorce without warning? Because they're jerks.
Because they're jerks? Yeah. They're afraid of the outcome, right? If they tell the other spouse, I'm going to file for divorce, they're afraid it'll cause fights and things of that nature. And so it's easier just to serve them and let the process server do the dirty work.
Yeah. So, I think that that's a big thing, is that there's this huge component of the component to whatever, a component of like having a fear of conflict, right? And I think like a lot of people tend to be like avoidant personalities, and maybe they don't want to argue. They don't want to get talked out of what it is that they're thinking. And so I guess that there's something to, like, once I serve him with the paperwork or serve her with the paperwork, then there's nothing really more to discuss, which I don't necessarily agree with.
No, because a lot of times there's more to discuss.
Yeah, there's a lot more to discuss. But maybe they just don't want to have it prior to filing. I don't really understand it, but some people do that. We have advice from friends or family of you have to file first because there's some sort of strategic advantage if you do that. We've had lots of different podcast episodes where we've kind of talked about that. Maybe sometimes there could be a strategic advantage, but most often it's, just getting something on file to get things started. That's basically it.
Yeah, no real strategic advantage. But I would say, just in general, advice from friends and family, terrible idea. Unless they're family law attorneys. And even then, right, if they're emotionally involved, may not be the best of advice.
Right, yeah. So the next thing, and this is actually, I think, a legitimate one, is protecting finances or children, right? And so, we have had that happen where, maybe husband's an alcoholic, or maybe wife is using drugs, or maybe we are having a mental health crisis, or maybe we know that once husband finds out that we're filing for divorce, he's going to go and wipe out all the bank accounts. So I think that is a huge reason why, we might say, don't tell them. Let's get this temporary restraining order signed. Let's get them served with a standing order, so that way we don't have them running, to Mexico with the children, or liquidating all of the retirement accounts and bank accounts without a potential criminal consequence associated with it.
Yeah, because if they're that type of person, right, then if they have enough warning, they can destroy a lot of things.
Right.
And sometimes those things are very difficult to get back.
Right.
Back to the conflict one, though, real quick. Family violence is another one. Mm-hmm. When they won't want to tell them up front, right, and let the process server do it because of fear of being physically or emotionally harmed.
Yeah.
So that one's also understandable.
Absolutely. Next thing that we wrote down is learning about infidelity. I think that that's kind of an emotionally charged reason to file a petition for divorce. No judgment. But I think that a lot of times people figure that stuff out. They get very, very upset. And so they just want to file without, having any discussions or giving any warnings to the other spouse.
That's why we have this 60-day waiting period.
Yep. So, do you want to talk about that, or
I
you
guess
drop it there and
drop it at that? Okay. Pick up the next podcast. You'll learn about this 60-day wait. No. So in Texas, you have to wait 60 days after you file before you can be divorced for that very reason, right? Some people just get emotional and file out of emotion rather than talking about it, thinking about it. And so Texas makes you cool off for a couple of months to make sure that's the right decision. So
Right. So emotional shutdown or long-term unhappiness. I mean, again, I feel like that's maybe not necessarily a situation where you're blindsided. Maybe it is, because I think a lot of people are like, listen, we've been unhappy for years and it's been fine. It's been okay. We've been together for 30 years. I never saw this coming. I was completely, blindsided. We haven't, been intimate with one another for 10 years. Like, how could they do this to me? Like, what? Like, you didn't see this coming, really? But sometimes that happens, and sometimes people just, enough's enough, and I'm gonna just file, and I don't really want to discuss it. I don't want to, have any issues. I just want to get it filed. So that makes sense. Yep.
Yep.
So the initial shock, what it feels like, and why it's normal. Do you like to talk about emotions? So you go
I always
ahead.
talk about emotions. Yeah. So I think it depends on how you feel about the marriage. You may be very happy, right, and relieved. Like, finally, I didn't have to do it. I wasn't the jerk. I can always say she's the one that divorced me, right? So you may be very happy. But if you're not, you could be confused.
Right.
Yeah, you could like not, and I guess you would be, right? If you just got served with papers, like, what the heck is going on here? Why didn't we talk about it? What did I do wrong?
What am I gonna do?
Probably know what you did wrong, but just in case you don't, you may not know.
So here's what I'll say when we're talking about this particular topic. Get in therapy, and I say this all the time on this damn podcast, and it still surprises me how many people, when they first come to us, are not in therapy. But this is rough stuff, guys, and trying to figure out why your marriage is over and why your life, the way that you perceived that it would be, right, until death do us part, why it's now all being destroyed. That is a very mentally taxing thing to try to figure out on your own. And I think it's an opportunity for growth, right? In therapy, to figure out, what did I do wrong? How could I have changed? What could I have done better? Or, perhaps, was I in a toxic relationship? Was I with somebody that was unhealthy? How is this all going to impact my children? When you start going through the therapeutic, tool, running through the therapeutic tools, I think a lot of the initial shock, which everybody has, and I don't care if you're even like, oh, this marriage should be over, you still have issues that you have to deep dive into. And so do that with a therapist, right? And I would encourage you, and I tell my clients this all the time, like, it's much less expensive for you guys to talk to a therapist than it is to talk to your divorce attorney. And a lot of times people want to kind of use us as a sounding board to discuss, the confusion, the betrayal, the panic, etc. And to some extent, we have to talk to you guys about these things, but we most certainly are not, the people with the best tools to be able to help you walk through that. And
I'm pretty good at dealing with people's emotions and stuff.
Unless
like
you're crying, then he can't talk to you. He must disconnect the call immediately. But talk to a therapist. Don't talk to your divorce attorney if you can avoid that, because they'll help you through it.
Yeah, like you said, the world is turned completely upside down. Like,
right.
Where the kid's going to be, what's the money going to look like, particularly if you're talking about the stay-at-home mom, right?
Right.
That doesn't have the ability to make the kind of money that she's used to living on. And so I think the important thing is just to try not to react immediately, right? Take some time, maybe a 72-hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good rule.
Yeah.
Take some time, talk to friends, family, talk to a mental health professional, talk to an attorney. Don't send the FU text, right? Or whatever, right?
Or like go to the house and start destroying stuff, or screaming, or taking a bat to his car. Like,
it's great in the song.
Great song, but really not great in real life. And these are things that we've seen people do, right? Don't grab the kids and run off out of state. Don't, go on social media and, start posting ridiculous things, sharing intimate photos of your spouse to humiliate or embarrass them. Going over to maybe the person that they're having the affair with and threatening them. I mean, there's all sorts of things, guys, that our clients have done and the opposing sides have done, that we're just like, man, if they had just had, maybe if they'd watched this podcast.
Maybe. If this podcast had existed.
Right, then maybe they wouldn't have done these things, and maybe their situation wouldn't be so bad. So And I will say, like, it is okay if you are in panic mode when you're served and you didn't see it coming, right? Like that's 100% a understandable emotion. So feeling it is good. Trying to control how you react to it is what you have to focus on, right? And so hopefully you have friends and family that can kind of guide you through it.
Next is, what do you do after you're served? What do you do?
Right.
Oddly enough, we recommend the 72-hour rule. So first is read what you have, right? In some counties, there's a temporary restraining order that are attached to these petitions. And people read temporary restraining order and nothing else in the document.
Right.
And they think they can't talk to the other person. They can't talk to the kids. They have to move out of the house. Like, there's all kinds of assumptions that come in when they read restraining order. But if you actually read it, it says none of those things. So take the time before you get all upset about, I can't see my kids for so long or whatever. Read the document, right? And odds are you're not going to understand all of it, right? That's why we go to school for a long time. So then reach out to an attorney and get some advice. Like, make sure that you understand what you are supposed to do and not do and all that. But first step, read what you were served with.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is I don't know how many times that somebody's been served with a temporary restraining order. And then the first thing that they do is go and liquidate the entire bank account. Or they decide that they're going to take the kids and they're going to, move over to grandma's in Oklahoma. Like basically just blatantly violating the restraining order. And, when we talk to them, it's, I was very emotional. I wasn't thinking straight. I talked to my cousin and he told me that I would be fine. Like, stop. Just stop. Read it. Try to talk to an attorney. Try to get a friend, get somebody that you're close with that will be calm and be able to go through that document with you so that you don't violate it and get yourself in big trouble and potentially lose your case.
But at the same time, protect yourself, right? Divorce is underway at this point. You don't know what the other person is going to do, right? Well, they say you never really know your spouse until you divorce them. Seen some crazy things, but so protect yourself, right? If you have important documents, make sure they're safe, right? Make copies of things that you need copies of. Bank accounts, get statements, right? Screenshots. Make sure you take the necessary actions to protect yourself, but at the same time, don't go in and withdraw all of the money out of the account and out of anger just to get back at the other party.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we say in here is do not contact the spouse in anger.
That's that FU text I was talking about earlier.
Right, yeah. Right. And I cannot tell you guys like how many times we, get video recordings or voice recordings where the spouse is served and then they come in and they're yelling and screaming, threatening, destroying. And the other spouse was smart enough to just document it all and get it on recording. And then the first hearing that you have within the month, the judge is hearing you threaten to kill him and how you're going to do all this crazy stuff. And then you lose everything, right? So I know that it's really difficult. I know that it's, probably way easier said than done. Just don't contact them in anger because it will be used against you.
And along some lines, if you're having a mental health episode or breakdown, right? Your spouse isn't who you need to talk to about it, right? You don't need to text your spouse and talk about, I have nothing to live for anymore, things like that, right? Take those to the professionals because that text may very well be used against you. Again, you don't know who they are until you divorce them. And so things that you think this other party would never do, they will. So if you have issues like that or thoughts like that, call a professional. Don't talk to your spouse about it.
Right. So do not make sudden financial moves. Going back to the temporary restraining order and the standing order, those are potential violations depending on what you're doing. And we actually had a case, a few weeks back where the husband had consulted with an attorney and the attorney, doing his job well, basically advised him to move all of the money like the day before the petition was filed. And so there was no violation of the restraining order, the standing order in that particular case because of the timing of when they moved in. And that was the situation where, the wife was caught off guard. She was caught, by surprise. And so he did it before the documents were served. I still think that didn't play well for him, but most certainly do not do it after you're served because that will create big problems for you.
I don't know if I'd say he did his job well.
I mean, he didn't violate the...
He didn't violate the order, but I bet he had hell to pay at the hearing.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, there was issues. So,
right.
But he didn't violate the order. So, you said secure important documents earlier. We've talked about consulting a lawyer. If there are kids,
that's tricky. That's tough.
Yeah. So, where do we start?
Be the bigger person. Think about the kids, even if they're not. Don't play the back and forth steal kids game. If that's the game they want to play, let's get to a hearing, right? Do not get involved in that. You will lose your kids if you do. And so it's difficult because you've been with the kids nonstop for so long, and now you're not going to be until we can get into a hearing. But there will be consequences if you get involved in all that. So just don't be the bigger person.
Well, and I think when it comes to kiddos, what you should try to do is maintain the status quo, right? And so, assuming that this is a divorce situation and you guys are both living in the house and mom's always picked up and dropped off and dad's always taken to Little League, like on a temporary basis, let's try to just keep everything cool, right? And make sure that they're having some sort of normalcy while this whole process is going on. If you guys have been separated and you guys, have been living apart for a month and your dad always had Tuesdays and Thursdays, like let's make sure that we're continuing to follow that regimen. I've seen it happen a lot where all of a sudden parties were doing a 2-2-3 schedule or 2-2-5 schedule, something like that. And then all of a sudden mom gets served with the divorce papers and she's like, boom, now you don't get to see them anymore because I'm pissed off at you. That will inevitably backfire on you because then dad doesn't get to see his kids for 6 weeks and dad is like, what the hell? He had him this entire time. Why are you now removing them from their father without any justification and the fact that you're pissed? Not going to be good for you.
Yeah, or just wait till court, then you can see them, right? We'll see what the judge says.
Right.
Just, keep status quo. Think about the kids. Don't be a jerk.
Right. The legal realities of being served without warning.
So I guess, the petition, you have to understand that there's a lot of things that are put in that petition that are not actually going to happen. You may get a petition that says, mom wants custody and wants dad to have supervised visits and wants disproportionate. That was the difference between God dog.
It's Friday. This is a Friday afternoon. It's a disproportionate share of the marital estate.
Or this one always, request for attorney's fees, that they pay the attorney's fees, right? And so don't take those seriously. That may be what they're really requesting, right? But a lot of times we have to put things in documents in case we need them later, right? But just because it's in there doesn't mean that person's fighting for custody and you're going to lose your kids forever and you're going to have to pay all these attorney's fees. That's not what it means. Talk to your attorney. Hire, if you don't have one, then hire one, right? But so don't take it with a grain of salt, I guess is the way I say it.
Yeah. Read it and understand it, and especially anything that says standing orders or temporary restraining orders, anything with the word order in it, let's make sure that we are following that stuff. But everything else, it's just a request, right? The judge can do it, the judge can deny it, and then once you hire an attorney, your attorney's going to file basically an identical document back to them saying, hey, I want custody too, and I want attorney's fees too, etc. So, you have to understand that you do have deadlines. Like if you are served with a petition, then you do have a deadline to file an answer. And it's typically the Monday following 20 days of service at 10 a.m. And so I can't tell you the number of times that people have, gotten their paperwork and they're pissed off and they throw it out the window and then they don't do anything with it. And then they get defaulted and the spouse wins everything. Right. And so there are deadlines. As soon as you get served, consult with an attorney, make sure that you understand when those are. Even if you can't hire an attorney, you can still file things on your own, so that you don't get defaulted.
Yeah, I've seen a couple times where you have the process server trying to serve somebody and they they refuse to take the paperwork, right? Or they are handed it and they throw it back to the process server, right? You still got served. You still have the same deadlines that are in those very documents that you threw away, and now you don't know what the deadlines are. So make sure that you don't be a jerk.
Right. And then if for some reason, just hypothetically speaking, if you're pissed and you throw them out the window or you leave them, at the front step and they get blown away by the wind, you can always go down to the district clerk's office.
Or if you throw them in the fire.
In the fire, rip them, shred them.
Hopefully not with your spouse's clothes. Because we have seen that.
We have seen that. Don't do that. If you lose it, you can always go down to the district clerk's office and pull a copy of them. Most attorneys can pull it from an online portal, but make sure that you get a copy of it ASAP. Okay. So we've already talked about how just because they filed doesn't mean they're going to win. If they filed first, so don't worry about that. And then we have like a whole probably 2 or 3 episodes on temporary orders and why they are probably the most important hearing that you're going to have in your entire case, and how you need to make sure that you keep your wits about you and you start preparing and gathering evidence and helping your attorney and not going crazy and doing stupid things that are going to hurt your case. So that way, when you get into that first hearing, you have success.
Yeah, so you want to respond strategically, right? Get an attorney, make sure you're filing your answer online. You talked about a counter petition, right? But when you do hire the attorney, they're going to go through, the answer is just a general form, it's simple. But the counter petition you file, your attorney will sit down with you and go through exactly what to put in that counter petition, what's your request, what you want, along with, strategic decisions that you and the attorney will make, right? And so you'll get all that prepared, get all that filed, and then start getting ready for the first hearing.
Yep. Photos, recordings, text messages, financial documents. We typically have a list, and we'll have, what we call an initial client meeting where both our paralegals and the attorneys will start going over all of that stuff with you. So, communications, do's and don'ts after surprise filing. Make sure that we're keeping our messages short and sweet and factual. And you should be good, right? Don't overshare information. Don't argue. Don't take jabs. Just kind of keep it in it. I know it's a maybe not the best way to say it, but you are literally in the business of going through a divorce. And so you have to try to treat this entire thing like once you're served, as difficult as it may be, you got to treat it as a business transaction, right? And so you have to think strategically. And so you have to think like, if the judge sees this, like, are they going to be okay with what I just said? And if the answer to that is no, then we're going to delete, and we're going to send the short and sweet message so that way it doesn't come back to bite us in the tail.
Yep. So don't write or say anything you don't want the judge to see or hear about, and don't call your spouse anything you wouldn't call the judge.
Right. So we do typically recommend, like once litigation commences, that everything that you do it in writing, right? And sometimes I don't like saying that because I'm like, if you guys can talk and be reasonable and try to figure things out on your own, then I think that's preferable. But most of the times, especially if you're getting caught off guard like this, it's probably not going to be one of those situations. And so trying to get everything in writing just so that your spouse doesn't come in and say, oh, well, she told me that I can keep all of this stuff and she's moving out of the house, or she told me about her boyfriend, or she was going to, hurt herself, whatever. If you're not talking to them, they can't make those allegations.
Yeah, and if you do talk about it, right, then later come up with a creative way to put it in writing. Right. I was thinking about our conversation a couple of days ago, just to be clear, you're going to drop off to school and I'm going to pick them up, right?
Right.
Some way to get it in writing later. If it's an issue you think you're going to have down the road that, will come up, make sure you get that in writing. But as much as you can get in writing, don't cause fights and stuff. But yeah.
So do maintain stable behavior around your kiddos. And
mucho important.
It's so hard. I understand. Like, you are potentially an emotional wreck. And again, going back to mental health professionals, like, you have to do what you can to try to keep your kiddos out of the situation and not let them see mom, crying all day, or, dad just acting crazy and angry and slamming things and breaking things. Just do your best. I know it's tough, but try.
And don't say your mom's trying to take you away from me. Your mom doesn't want me to see you anymore, or your dad's taking all the money, or whatever the case may be. Keep them out of it.
Yeah. Yep. Do not post anything emotional online.
Social media.
Ugh. Yeah.
Lawyer's best friend and worst nightmare.
Right. So, we've had that happen where there were some videos of a physical altercation that was caught on a Ring camera, and the wife went online on Facebook and posted like the entire argument on Facebook. And it did not go well for her whenever she went into court. And so um, try to keep it private. Try not to blast your business out on social media if it can be avoided. And because the other thing is, and in that particular case, they had older kids. And so that was pretty humiliating for them to be all over social media, for their parents to be all over social media. So just think about your children, think about your public image, and hopefully everything would be good.
Yeah, and then you've got to start planning, right? So again with the mental health stuff, but start talking to friends and family. Okay, what's my next move? What's this going to look like post divorce? How am I going to handle it financially? Where am I going to live? Those kind of stability decisions that you're going to have to make now that your world has been turned upside down. You've got to gather your composure, and retrench.
Yeah,
figure it out.
And I think that this is where who you hire as your divorce lawyer is such a huge thing that you all should consider. And I tell any person that I consult with, like, I want you to shop, right? I want you to vet, because I may not be everybody's cup of tea, and I'm okay with that. Because this is going to be an extremely important relationship that you're going to have with this individual. And you have to make sure that they have the ability to guide you and to be honest with you and to maybe probably tell you some things that you don't want to hear, right? And almost every single consultation that I have with a client, I will say, well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, that's going to screw us over. Well, not really sure how we're going to have to, deal with this particular issue. But we're going to figure it out. And sometimes they'll tell me, well, I talked to, Joe down the street, and he told me that he was going to win me custody and all this money and all this other stuff. Well, then go hire Joe, because I'm not going to tell you that, because I think when we walk out of that courtroom, you're going to be extremely disappointed with Joe. So make sure that you find somebody that you trust and it's going to have tough conversations with you, because you have issues. Everybody's going to have issues.
Yeah, and they will advise you on how to set up a temporary plan. Like, how are we going to, they'll talk you through that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so are you going to live in the house? Are you not going to live in the house? If you're not going to live in the house, how are you going to afford it, right? Let's look at your finances. Let's look at your budget. Is this something that you can afford? Do we need to request spousal support? Do we need to request attorney's fees, right? What does the visitation schedule need to look like to where it works between you and the other parent, and most importantly, the children? And so you've got to make all those plans for the temporary hearing and for post-divorce.
Right. So when the surprise filing is a red flag, so financial control or hiding assets, that's something that we see a whole lot. We've had different podcasts about discovery, and it's a long process. It's an expensive process, but it is oftentimes a necessary process for us to figure out what happened with all the money. And, unfortunately, if you're caught off guard like this, a lot of times the other spouse has been planning for months and months, and they've moved things around. They hid things, they sold things. They've started withdrawing a bunch of cash that we can't track down. And so once they get their whole little plan in place, boom, now you get served, and you're like, what the hell happened to all of this money? Like, how did this 401k get liquidated, 6 months ago, and I didn't know about it? All I can tell you is that, yes, it sucks when it happens. Yes, there's a means to be able to recover and figure those things out. It's just going to take time, and it's going to take money to do it.
And there may be, a TRO with extraordinary relief where they're trying to deny you possession, or even if they're not a TRO, right? They may just outright not allow you visitation with the kids, right? So be ready for that. I guess don't be ready for it because it's a surprise, but well, after you watch this, you'll be ready for it, even if it's a surprise. Right. You'll know how to react, right? So don't be caught off guard by it. It may happen. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully the other parent loves the children more than that. But if it does happen, get with an attorney. Don't get into the stealing game, right? Go picking them up from school without telling the other parent and then hiding them yourselves, right? Don't stoop to their level. Be the bigger person. Think about the kids. We can deal with it. There will be consequences. But yeah, don't do that.
So we've had this happen, several times where, hypothetically speaking, the wife goes in and she files for a protective order or she files for the TRO extraordinary relief, and husband gets served and he gets kicked out of his house and he's like, what in the hell? Like, this is absolutely nuts. I've never touched her. I've never done any of the things that she's put in this affidavit. How in the hell am I getting kicked out of my house? I'm going back there. Nobody's going to tell me what I'm going to do in my own home. It don't.
That's
Number one,
false.
that is very false. The short answer is don't do that. But again, it's going to take time, but there will be remedies, right? Like there will be a day when she's going to have to answer for her false allegations. And so take a minute, take a breath, go to your mom's house, your friend's house, and then start gathering all your evidence so that we have the ability to combat that when we go to court.
And if that is your situation, just remember that, because like the protective order thing, like you don't have your clothes, right? You don't have your personal belongings. You were just sometimes they'll give you 5 minutes to gather your stuff. You're just done, right? And so don't feel like you're justified in, oh, I can go just get my clothes, or I just asked her about the kids. I wasn't doing anything wrong. It does not matter. Read the documents, follow the documents, talk to an attorney.
Yeah, like that's the worst whenever somebody gets served with a protective order and they're literally calling, crying, and begging, and like, I just want to see my children, I just miss you, and I love you, and we can work on this, we can figure it out. And then the next thing they know, they're getting arrested for violating a protective order. And so, again, we know that these are very emotionally charged situations, but you have to find somebody that can help you through it. Otherwise, you go from just getting a divorce and being kicked out of your house to now being in jail, and then we have issues.
Yeah, just remember those tables, they can turn, right?
I feel like we say that a lot.
We may have said that, yeah. Those tables can turn. And so they may catch you by surprise and have control of the finances and the kids. But when they have to answer for their actions, those tables will turn around and they will be very sad with their decisions.
Well, we've had that happen like several times where people have filed false, affidavits for protective orders, and or temporary restraining orders. And we go into court and we're able to show that it was all BS, and we win custody, we win the house, and we win the money, and we win everything. So number one, if you're thinking about doing that, don't do it, right? And number two, if you are the victim of that particular situation, then just hire a really good attorney so that they can come in and take care of you and defend you.
Yeah, the old plan, I'll just tell them you hit me and they'll take the kids away from you. That will work temporarily.
Yeah. Yep. So, you can recover quickly, control quickly if you take informed steps, right? So if you listen to our podcast, if you talk to an attorney, if you listen to them, try not to be emotional, try not to be crazy. And if you can kind of maintain your composure, more than likely you're going to figure this thing out.
And then consult with an attorney, right? The earlier you can do that, the more likely we can save you from doing something foolish.
Right.
Because probably whatever you're thinking about doing is the wrong thing when you're emotional like that. So we can tell you why you shouldn't do it and kind of walk you through it. So the earlier you can get in with an attorney, get in.
And the thing that I will say is as your case progresses, right? As time passes from the initial filing to, a couple months later, a month later, sometimes weeks later, the idea and the concepts and the business of divorce becomes a lot easier for you. And it's more palatable, right? And it's less emotional. You're not going to be as stressed or as anxious or as charged. And so just give yourself a little bit of grace and know that there is definitely going to be light at the end of the tunnel. Promise you. So,
right.
With that being said, thank you guys for listening to the consultation. As we always state, please do not take this as legal advice. If you find yourself in this situation, reach out to an attorney in your area, talk to them about your individual situation, listen to their advice. We do have several offices in the state of Texas. We have one in Odessa, one in Midland, one in Mound, Lewisville, Dallas, and North Richland Hills. And so if you are in those areas, feel free to reach out to us for a consultation and we will be happy to help. And you can feel free to follow us on all social media platforms as well, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the places. Thank you guys.